making my phone ring. What? With the rain and not doing nothing all day. Rain, I was in the basement watching Netflix.
But we appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
So we wish we were home watching that.
Oh. Waiting for that. You don't watch Netflix? I'm waiting for that. Oh,
Ah,
you like that? Yeah. That crazy or what? How you take an average nice American family and turn it into just evil? In the park. You watch Breaking Bad when that was coming on? Same kind of thing.
Oh, about an hour. Our city council.
we're only. We don't watch it. I know.
I would like to call our meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. Appreciate everybody joining, and we're having a full team behind the table. That's good. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Agenda approved. Next, approval of the minutes of our last meeting of February 8, 2022. Like to entertain a motion to approve minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. Public comments. I don't know, did we have anybody sign up for public comment? Nope. All right, then we can skip that one. And next, get to our new business. This is a public hearing variance request VAR 22-02 Alpo MR LLC request a variance from Mills River zoning ordinance 154.046 corridor overlay district. All right, is there any, I'm following the rules here. Is there any board member that has a conflict with the subject property or property owner? So they need to be replaced with an alternate?
No.
No.
Okay,
But first we could go into public hearing.
then I would like to entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
Go into public hearing.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Then we are now in the public hearing. I got to announce what I just did. Variance request VAR 22-02 Alpo MR LLC request a variance from Mills River zoning ordinance 154.046 corridor overlay district. Is there any board member that has any personal knowledge of which they may rely that is not in the record?
No.
No. All right. Next is swearing in of those here to present evidence, and we leave that up to our fearless clerk.
Anyone who's planning to speak for, not for the town. Want to make sure I have all your names, or Mr. and Mrs. Smithson planning to speak. All right, then I need everyone, all of you to stand up. We're gonna do this because of COVID, we're just gonna do it like this. Yes, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you. Then next, we would like to recognize our zoning official to present the case and make recommendations. Mr. Malachek.
Good evening, board members. So we're hearing a case tonight, as said by Drew Abbott was the applicant from Carolina Specialties Construction, and he was acting as an agent for the current owner of the subject property at 2220 Jeffress Road, Al Palmer LLC, Skyline Plastic Systems. And again, the request is for a variance from the corridor overlay district requirements for new non-residential buildings and building additions within 500 feet of a qualifying road, Jeffress Road being one of the major thoroughfares that triggers these requirements. Just to summarize the case history, Carolina Specialties Construction submitted a zoning permit application given number Z21191 on December 17th of 2021 for an 80-foot by 75-foot, 6,000 square foot building addition to the existing 10,400 square foot manufacturing building and the attached approximately 1,500 square foot office at the subject property. Town staff, being myself, reviewed the application and informed the applicant on December 21st via email that the corridor overlay district applied to this property and the building addition project. I described the architectural requirements for the building addition per 154.046C and that the property must also comply with current parking and landscaping standards per 154.046D and E. I had further conversations with Frank Kelsch of Homesmith Architecture between January 4th and 6th, centered around what types of materials may qualify or be acceptable in the corridor overlay district. One option presented for compliance was to cover portions of the building addition with a wood or composite panel siding similar to T111 siding that had the appearance of an artificial wood grain look, which the ordinance states is an acceptable material, artificial wood grain look. Frank Kelsch said he would present options to his client and they would decide whether to comply or move forward with the variance. Chris Cormier, owner, managing member of Carolina Specialties Construction, called town manager Daniel Cobb on February 3rd to schedule a meeting to discuss the project. Myself and town manager Cobb met with Mr. Cormier on February 8th. The result of the meeting was Carolina Specialties deciding to apply for this variance. The variance application was submitted on February 10th, asked for an expedited hearing so the applicant wouldn't have to wait until the April regular meeting. That's basically my summary. The evidentiary hearing was properly noticed. Public notice letters were mailed to adjacent property owners on February 17th. Public notice sign was posted on the property on February 15th, and legal advertisements ran in the Hendersonville Lightning on February 23rd and March 2nd. I'll just run through the attachments real quick. Attachment A in your packet is the variance application and appointment of agent form. Attachment B are the development plans submitted with the variance application for the building addition project. Attachment C is the zoning permit application Z21191 and associated attachments. I've also included my staff review email from December 21st, 21, my correspondence with Frank Kelsch, the architect, January 6th, 22. The corridor overlay district ordinance excerpt is in attachment F. And then just a general site map of the subject property is attachment G. And we have some building photos as attachment H and my certificate of public notice mailing as attachment I. So I moved to submit those into the record.
Thank you. We would like to recognize next the applicant to agree or object to any of the exhibits that we have been presented. Agree with the exhibits. Thank you. Next, we can address questions to our zoning official for our board members.
I'm telling you right now.
No? Okay. Then we would like to invite the applicant to make a presentation of evidence and an argument for this variance. If you can come up to the microphone and state your name.
Good evening. My name is Frank Kelsch. I'm with Homesmith Architecture. I'm a licensed architect in the state of North Carolina, and my business is centered in Hendersonville. I'm also here with Drew Abbott and Chris Cormier from Carolina Specialties and Luke and Debbie Smithson from Skyline Plastics. We really appreciate you guys having this expedited meeting tonight. So I want to start with that. I'm probably going to repeat a few things that Michael had stated. So forgive me for that. The building was originally constructed in 1995, and Skyline Plastics, they really specialize in industrial moldings, and they have clients such as BMW would be one of their clients. The existing structure, as Michael said, is about 10,500 square feet of factory, about 1,500 square feet of office. And we're looking to put a 6,000 square foot addition on, principally to be used for storage of raw materials and for finished parts prior to shipping to the customers. We're here seeking a variance of the overlay corridor district, and that ordinance states that its purpose is to preserve the aesthetic rural character of the community. Michael sort of described sort of what types of buildings need to comply with that, so I won't sort of reiterate what those things are. But I wanted to just talk a little bit about the difficulty there is in sort of dictating something that is aesthetic in character through a prescriptive ordinance, and that might not always yield the desired result. So if the purpose is to preserve the rural aesthetic of the community, then I want to sort of challenge that if we sort of apply the strict requirements of the overlay district, we won't necessarily end up with that. And maybe suggest some alternatives to that. So a prescriptive ordinance, it just can't really take into account all the subtleties of a particular site, a particular building. It can't really work on proportions. So it talks a little bit about we need to have 75% of materials on the facades that are visible from the corridors, 40% of materials on the facades that can't be seen from the corridors of these sort of natural materials, such as natural brick or stone, or rock or stone, timber, wood look, whether it's natural or artificial. And it doesn't really describe a good building. It's just trying to set out some parameters. And for a community such as Mills River, the aesthetic character is really critical to establishing a sense of place. So the intent of the overlay ordinance, I think, is quite good. The application, I think, is sort of where the challenge comes, in particular in this case. So for some businesses, such as retail or restaurants, aesthetics in the building are sort of critical to their success. A restaurant that feels great inside and outside can really make a business succeed, where if it was aesthetically unappealing, even if it was good in other cases, it may not succeed. For other types of businesses, such as manufacturing, Skyline Plastics being one of them, aesthetics are less critical to the success of their business. So really what we want to try and do is balance the goals of the community to preserve the rural character of the community with the needs of a business. So in their particular case, doing no aesthetic improvements would probably not affect their bottom line at all. In fact, it would negatively affect their bottom line. So they don't have like a real desire to do that, other than the fact that they're members of this community. So we're looking to try and balance sort of meeting those two needs. if we follow the prescriptive nature of the ordinance, I think I could argue that we would end up with like an actually uglier building than if we just did an addition that matched the existing building. So the existing building, I don't know if you're familiar with it, you have some pictures there, but it's a pre-engineered metal building. It has metal siding. And the intention originally with the addition was that it would simply match the existing structure. Now, if we meet the strict guidelines of the overlay district, what we'll end up with is an existing building with metal siding and an addition on the end that's got lots of natural materials. And I think the end result of that would be somebody driving by and saying, that's kind of weird. That was an odd aesthetic choice to make. So what we don't want to do is actually make something worse by following the strict guidelines of the ordinance. So again, I think I could argue that doing nothing would be preferable to that, because in one situation, somebody drives by and it's just a sort of innocuous building like it is now. And there wouldn't be anything that sort of strikes your attention that sort of draws negatively to the overall sort of look of the building. If it was all the same, it would just be this innocuous building like it is now. You drive by it sort of unnoticed. So that would be the first desire from the client from, as I mentioned before, doing aesthetic improvements don't really help their bottom line, so to speak, like it might other businesses. So that would be the preferred outcome. Now, granted, if that's not an option to do nothing with respect to the overlay district, I might suggest an alternative approach to it, one that would make better use of any funds that they would use to aesthetically improve the building while not making it seem like this sort of odd aesthetic choice. So that alternative, the simple alternative, would be to take what is required on the addition, right? Because that's what the ordinance requires, is that either new buildings or additions to new buildings must meet the requirements of the overlay district. So if we follow it strictly, yeah, if you don't mind, Drew, appreciate it. So there's a photograph at the top, and that is the office portion of the building that sits proud of the rest of the building. So it sticks out in front of the manufacturing portion of the facility as it currently stands. And then on the bottom is a rendering of what might be a solution to change up the overall aesthetic. So what the ordinance doesn't really give, it gives a prescriptive sort of here's what to do, here's some guidelines, but it doesn't really give a mechanism to try and come up with a better approach. And we think that if nothing is not an option, then this would be a better approach, to take the requirements as they are for the addition portion of the project and instead apply it to that head building at the front. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, that's like the piece that's closest to the street. It's the piece that already is sort of unique as far as the building goes. So the rest of the building is sort of this long, simple structure. It is sort of a unique architectural piece on the front. And it's the piece that the public, what limited public does enter the building, that they would interact with. That's the piece that they would come closest in contact with. It's the piece that's closest to the road. And focusing the attention on that one piece, I think will give, when it comes to the variance, if you look at sort of the requirements for granting the variance, number 4 talks about sort of meeting the intent or the spirit of the ordinance. And we think that this approach does a much better job of a strict adherence to the ordinance where it gets applied to the addition, which would create an odd looking building in the end. So the client's sort of desired outcome from tonight would be a couple things. First would be either approval of, we don't have to do anything with respect to the overlay district because in fact it will create an odd looking building, or approval of a slightly varied approach where it's not strictly applied to the addition, but instead to that head structure. Then a time frame. You know, you set the time frame and says, here's how long you have to provide that information to us. It demonstrates something that is like the second image on that one page below the photograph. That is something that the clients have seen, they've looked at, they like, but I think it's something that we'd like to have a little bit more time with to fine tune the detailing, do the cost analysis, and just make sure that those choices are the right choices. So, but it would be something similar to what you see there in terms of the level of change from existing to new. And then lastly, sort of an immediate approval of the zoning compliance so that the owner could start construction on the addition. So the addition, if you guys approve sort of moving the requirements for the overlay district from the addition to the head building, then the addition could stand just as like we have it drawn. And so we could start construction on that. There wouldn't be any delay. And then you would give us a time frame to come back to you and say, here's what we'd like to do on the head building to meet the intent of the overlay district. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. And again, we have other people here to.
So then, excuse me, allergies, that's all. So I gather you're proposing for the addition, let's call it the storage area,
Yes.
to mimic this as far as the product used to cover it?
So the existing structure, which is
It's
metal
sort of
siding,
beige with a blue top.
it has beige with a blue gutter.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
And-
Additional drawings.
Yeah,
Okay.
We got the pictures, the building front picture,
right.
if you look at that one.
Correct.
And
This is really expensive.
exactly, but what I just wanted, what are you planning to clad the addition with?
To match the existing. So correct, it would be metal siding and that sort of beige. Yes, exactly. Again, to keep it from looking odd, you know, you'd have this building where just sort of this end portion that really is the same proportions and structural makeup and things has a very different aesthetic look. So we think that that break there between the existing and the new doesn't really lend itself to good design. And so what we're trying to do is make this ordinance sort of fit to a better design, which would lend to a better end product.
Question, a couple of questions. What's around you? I couldn't figure out what other.
Pictures of kind of some surrounding property.
Yeah, I thought, what properties are around you? You're not around.
There's the greenhouses are further down the road. There's a sawmill. There's a trailer plant behind them. I think it's Baker Roofing.
Okay, so there's other industrial.
Yes,
and-
yes, I took pictures up and down the road.
Aren't there a couple churches around
There
there?
are, yes, I think there's a Jehovah's Witness.
Jehovah's Witness, yep, Seventh Day.
And it's now, okay, so the regular, looks like a regular industrial building. So
Currently,
the proposal is to make the expansion look like regular industrial building and change the front
correct,
to the one at the bottom.
correct. Something like the one at
Something
the
like
bottom.
that, because it
Yes.
looks like you've got brick or something up.
We've got sort of a
Fake
brick water table to the top of the
Yeah.
windows there. It sort of cuts down in front of the that main entry door. It's got a new awning. And then that top portion where it's kind of that blue teal color would be
That's the
sort of
brown
it would be like a
plastic.
wood kind of board and batten look, not board and batten, but wood
Well-
plank look.
Because that looks, the bottom picture looks pretty good in it. I'm assuming you guys have customers. It'd be more impressive to come look at your product with the bottom building than the top building. Price you can go up the bottom building. Looks a lot nicer when I walk in. You know, I'm kind of impressed versus like, oh, it's just a Butler building.
Any other questions right now?
Nope, I think I'm good.
We don't have an attorney tonight. do
No, we don't have an attorney. We gotta do it ourselves.
Well, if you do have additional questions, I'm happy to
Sure.
take them.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
we? Let me,
Well, there's question.
and when you were outlining what you hoped we would do,
Yes,
you indicated that you were hoping that we would give you initial go ahead and then set up timelines. What would you propose for a timeline to get all this together? You know, we can't say, oh, come back and see us in a couple of years.
yeah. Well, certainly, I mean, what you do hold out. So right now, the building permit can't be issued without the zoning compliance. So, but what still is out there is the certificate of occupancy. So you still have that over the owner in terms of making sure they comply before they can actually use it. So certainly, I don't think we need anywhere near that time, but sometime between now and the certificate of occupancy, whatever the city may have.
We don't.
No, the only thing we're talking about is a variance.
Right.
Right, but if we wanted to put something on it, I mean, this gentleman, it was a good presentation and it kept me listening. But then you had said within a period of time, come back. Well, a period of time is a very subjective phrase.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'm going to sort of address the contractors because I spoke about sort of the need to sort of look at the detailing
Yeah.
and some costs and things like
If
that.
I may, I
So,
don't know if that's really a timeframe needed. What we're approving today is either one of these, we approve, I think, for construction. We approve the siding areas.
Reference to finishing up the front was not the finished product. He wanted to look at it and come back.
He has two proposals. Let me get to make sure I understand. Either one, you'd like us to. you'd like us to
Excuse me,
approve.
Brian, you turn your microphone on.
I can't. Right side.
Do you want me to turn off?
No, you're good. So to make sure I understand correctly, what you would like in a perfect world is for us to approve the addition with the type of material that's already there
correct.
on the building. Then you gave us an option that might make us happy, and that is doing the front portion in a material and not the new addition.
Correct.
Correct. So if either way, if we approve whatever we approve today, what need would you have to come back in front of us again? You said there's a time frame. I mean, you have to, once we approve it, you're under the.
Yeah, so I guess something that shows that we comply. So that's something that Michael would have to approve. So whenever we submit, he has to approve the zoning compliance, which deals with the requirements of the overlay district. So we would need to come back with something that he actually has time to review and approve.
But if I'm understanding the ordinance as we have it in front of us today, it doesn't permit the addition to be clad in the existing cladding that's on this building.
That's correct.
That's right.
That's correct.
So you can't just do nothing.
Right, so that's why I'm proposing we don't do it on the addition, but we do it on the head building. So I don't expect you to grant the nothing sort of portion of the request, but we think a much better option than strictly going by the ordinance and it applying to the addition be to apply it to the head building.
So what we need to, I guess in my mind, what we need to approve to approve. We need to approve the addition as a metal frame, as is, and approve the office space with the wooden.
I think it's a
Right.
little
It's
difference,
no.
honestly.
Can I make a
We have
clarif-
We have a variance request in front of us. We're here to either approve or disapprove that variance. It's not a conditional variance.
Right.
So with all respect for
Sure.
what you're offering,
Sure.
I think the other improvement that you are maybe gonna make
Mhm.
is something that you don't need a permit for or a variance for. Your expansion to maintain the current metal cladding, you do need a variance.
Right.
Getting it Right?
Yes, so we're asking for, instead of applying it to the addition, that we apply it to a different part of the building, which will meet the intent of the ordinance.
Okay,
That's what we're asking.
clear. Any other questions for the applicant right now? Because I think we've got some questions probably for
Yeah.
the zoning administrator after this.
As long as we can come back.
Yeah, we.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right.
I have a question
For who?
for my zoning.
Well, let's back up one and follow the variance ruling. The acknowledgement, can we get an acknowledgement from the zoning administrator that the public hearing was noticed properly?
Acknowledged.
Recognition of any other person that is in favor, against, or would like to give evidence for this variance.
I'm in favor.
If you, I think we need to get your name, so if you would be able to step up to the microphone and,
I think they're with the applicant.
We are.
Yeah,
The
okay.
intent of this
fine,
is
you don't need the
for
name,
other
perfect.
Good try.
Any other person wishing to comment? Preliminary discussion, and this is where we can ask questions to the zoning administrator or to anybody or the applicant or anybody else.
My
Go ahead.
question is, does the ordinance apply if they make improvements to a building?
No, like
Like-
exterior improvements.
Yeah, because that, if I look at this picture, this second picture is really an improvement to an existing building. Do they? Is that
No.
ordinance?
No zoning permit would be needed because there's no structural change.
Okay, all right. So that in mind, while this could be the right thing to do for your business, the question before us is the zoning variance for the expansion.
Yes,
Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions right now?
Okay. Taking it into, yes, I understand what you just said, because basically it's like I paint my house. I don't need a variance for that. But if the, well, we have a flexible HOA, but if you're talking about what I gather is it's a trade-off. Let me put all this stuff that the new ordinance says I have to have on the front of the building so that I can just put up metal stuff on the new addition. And that's, to my thinking, not the purpose of the ordinance the way it stands now.
I don't know if we can put conditions on a variance.
Yeah.
I'm researching that as we speak.
Okay.
But can I make just one clarifying point? As Chairman Lemkes has said, this board is here tonight to consider the variance for the addition. This board, I'll put it delicately, does not have the authority to compel the issuance of a permit. And I'm bound to to the code for every person that comes before me, and I cannot issue a permit unless there is compliance.
And the variance would then make it compliant.
If this board chooses to grant a variance, that is compliance through the variance.
Yep.
Kind of my 2 cents, but kind of my 2 cents on this thing is that the current siding matches everything else that's down there in that area now. I personally see no need to make them add anything to it. Keep now, in my opinion, I think we should grant the variance, just allow me to use the siding as currently on the building for the new addition.
Okay. I have another question for our zoning administrator. There's a rule that in this zoning, whatever you call it, there's an exemption
For windows.
for accessory structure, 20% of less of total floor area of the principal structure.
Correct. So if an accessory structure would be a detached structure
Okay,
So-
so it's only for detached.
at 20%. So for this, it would be if the manufacturing facility is 10,000 square feet, and I'm just rounding, it would be a 2,000 square foot detached accessory structure.
Question for.
So if I just may keep running on that one, so if somebody would, with this ordinance in place, if somebody would have a 200-foot building in there since 1995, and you want to put 10 foot extra on it, you would have to use this other material.
As it's written, yes.
Thank you. Okay. We were thinking the same thing here. I have a question for the applicant. In the rules, there is also parking requirements and landscaping requirements. Are you basically in a position to fill all those requirements?
We're not asking for any variance requests with those two.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time?
Ready to vote.
Well,
I just would like to say our job is not to legislate
nope, it's to give a variance or not.
or not, but we can't pick and choose little parts of an ordinance, or we can't, like, we can't make a deal. Right?
No, we got to follow the four conditions that we vote on. And that's basically, with voting in favor, we approve the variance or we deny the variance. That's all we do. Mr. Manager.
Right.
Thank you. Just remember, a 4/5 vote is required to approve a variance. Conditions may be imposed on a variance as long as those conditions are reasonably related to the variance in the project before the board. There you go.
Okay, so to apply that directly, we could say by 12 months from now, you have to have the office upgraded to what is proposed.
Except he's just said it's strictly a proposal. It may come back totally different. If I understood what was being, you're saying this is kind of what we're thinking about, but it could be totally different from what this picture shows.
I think it would be very similar. The clients have seen it.
Mr.
They like it.
If you'd approach the
Yeah,
microphone.
The clients have seen it. What hasn't happened is Mr. Malachak hasn't looked at it, reviewed it, and approved it in any form. So
But with all,
there might be some very, I mean, in my mind, it would be some very minor adjustments to what you see there. And
Mr. Malachek does not have to approve anything after we have approved this variance.
Correct. So if I can elaborate, if the board were to issue a variance for the addition with the condition that this second picture be implemented on the front of the office building, the permit would be issued for the addition immediately once the variance is granted.
If I might, if it means sort of granting the variance or not granting the variance, whether or not that stays. I mean, I guess I could ask the clients if they say, sure, we are fine with that as you see it there. We can detail it out that way for final construction and things like that. If that's sort of something that sort of weighing on your mind, whether or not this thing ends up looking like what you see there. Okay, so they would agree to that. If that's something that would sort of determine which way you vote, just offer that.
Thank you.
And I'll just elaborate, that is allowable anytime a condition is attached to any land use approval, including a variance. When the variance is sent to the applicant, there has to be an acknowledgement of the conditions. So there is a signature stating they would agree to comply. And if for some reason they fell through on that obligation, they would be in violation of the ordinance through the variance.
All right. Are we done with asking questions to our zoning administrator for the applicant? Because then we start our internal deliberation.
I have no more questions.
I'm good. All right. Then we can deliberate. Any questions, concerns with what we have heard so far? And basically, how do we move or no, I mean, back up? Any discussion?
We're just having discussion here. Like I said, I believe, the hardship was not created by them. This was created by the building. This is what was on the building. It doesn't make sense to me if somebody has an addition onto a structure that they have to put a different material on the structure that they're attaching to a building.
So you're basically addressing the first one, which
Yeah.
there are unnecessary hardships in the way of carrying out the strict letter of the
So
ordinance.
I'll start the discussion out with that first one. Does anybody want to discuss that point?
I agree.
Okay.
I would agree. The manufacturing facility, I would agree.
Any?
Oh,
Okay.
And I'm not making a motion. It's just, I
No.
figured it's just the
no.
best way to discuss it.
Let's do it that way, and then we run back and get to the motions.
So I mean, and I do believe there would be a hardship created for a couple, first of all, for the hardship of which the applicant claims results unique circumstance related to applicant's land. I agree with them if that's the way the structure is built. And if they, to comply, it's going to cause them to have to spend the extra money to do that, which if that's what we agreed to. So be it. It's also going to be the only structure down there like that. Behind it is a storage facility where we do business at. All the structures down there are the same material, with the exception of the church, I believe.
well, one of the churches is brick, I think.
I think the one I'm thinking is a brick building. But every other structure down there is just like that. And then, of course, the hardship's not a result of anything they did. And I believe it is in the spirit of us trying to keep their building looking like the surrounding area that's down there. That's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Then the last one that we haven't touched on yet is the variance that we're discussing consistent with spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance. And I think if I may just make one little statement, if I look at the purpose of our, I'm at number 4 on that one. The corridor overlay district guidelines attempt to incorporate design elements that preserve the heritage as the town continues to grow and develop. think a variance like this is very much consistent with spirit, purpose and intent of the ordinance, because it will keep a building from getting ugly with some of this and some of something else.
I don't really consider a warehouse. Wow.
That's all.
I'm
You're on?
No, you're not. No, you're
I
on.
was on now.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not an engineer. I really don't consider a warehouse a heritage building. I think it needs to be look tidy and neat. And this isn't, like, nobody's gonna ever write this up in the 100 coolest buildings in Henderson County. So the fact that they're willing to maintain whatever aesthetic is here, I think should be taken into consideration.
Okay.
I'm done.
Done.
On.
Who wants to start? You're ready. Go ahead.
I guess the first motion.
Yep.
I'm sorry, microphone.
All right, I do believe an unnecessary hardship would result from strict application of the ordinance. In the sense, in addition to the building and complying with the ordinance, it would create an odd looking building. It would also cause them to have to spend extra money to create a look that no other structure has down there. It would also have their building mismatched. And also believe that there's a hardship in doing an addition and having to use different materials in the addition. So I believe that the strict application would cause a hardship in that sense.
That was a motion.
It was a motion.
Sue, you got the motion?
Your penny says so.
Okay, good. Second on the motion.
A second.
All in favor, say aye. We're gonna have 4 out of 5. So we'll go
Aye.
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 aye. 5 out of 5. Next.
I make a motion that the hardship which the applicant complains about results from unique circumstances related to the applicant's land. The property and the building was in place since 1995. Therefore, they did not create anything, and it is something that they adopted when they purchased the land. So I make a motion that I need to make, I think that was the motion. So
That was the
that
motion.
was the motion.
Okay. Second to that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. 5 out of 5.
Next motion is that the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The property has been owned, or the property has been there since 1995, and they are not the builders of the property.
Second to that motion. All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. 5 out of 5.
I'd almost like you to make this, and the way you said it was so beautiful earlier, and you talked about the spirit of it. I make a motion that the variance is consistent with the spirit and purpose and the intent of the ordinance, and that it is, to what the chairman read, it does seem that there are considerations when trying to keep certain structures looking like certain structures in the area, and that mismatching a structure with different building materials is inconsistent with the spirit. So I believe that this variance is consistent with the spirit of the intent of the ordinance. That's my motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, now we have to have a motion to approve this variance. Right?
And if you wish to attach a condition,
Exactly.
please say.
Okay, so how do we want to word a motion whereby we attach this condition for the resurfacing, remodeling of the front of the existing office?
Well, I have a motion. I'd like y'all to consider. I make a motion that we approve the variance without any conditions of materials, as far as adding new materials to the front. Just approve the variance as is, where I'm at,
Okay,
with no conditions.
second to that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 5 out of 5, aye. Without condition, variance approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
This means we're going to Hollywood.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn our hearing. Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our clerk has one other item on the agenda that we don't know about yet.
Yes, well, it's just that we've been trying to schedule some training. Because some of you have been on the board forever, some of you are newer, some of you have been on the board for over a year and you haven't never been trained. And Mike has put together some training. If you're available, April 12th.
Ask Laura. She schedules her smooth.
That's our normal Board of Adjustment.
It is a
Evening.
regularly scheduled meeting,
Okay.
but right now we don't have anything else for the agenda, so this would be the purpose.
Yep.
All right, everybody looks good?
Yep.
Don't know yet, if you'll let me know.
All right.
Then we just need to adjourn the meeting. Oh.
Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor? Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was good.
Wow.
That was good.